First off, I want to thank TMEA and Time for allowing me to come over and talk about something I'm really passionate about, the Makerspaces, and I'm also very thankful to Steve at Boston State University for allowing me to come over here as well. I've been at SFA for 24 years, and you'll see a couple photos on there from when I'm a little younger and thinner, when I first started there and whatnot. And so I'm going to talk about a couple aspects of the Makerspaces, and I'm going to have a couple of components. One, I'm going to talk about a little bit about Makerspaces in general. Then I'll talk about how to use technology that you may already have or that you can find to use for the purposes of being able to make your own Makerspaces, or maybe add it to existing Makerspace as well. And then also the last part, I'll go over the Makerspaces I work in currently as well. All right. So there's a picture of the TV that's in front of our Makerspace there, and you can see that it's open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday. It's in the library. It's across from our ARC, basically our language and tutoring center, and so it has a lot of foot traffic right there on the bottom floor. Then you'll see a little wider shot later on. I was so fortunate that I got picked to be the first SFA Makerspace faculty fellow. So kind of my job is to help us faculty and staff and students to be able to use their creativity. And one aspect they got me into is because they already had 3D printers, and that's something you probably think about, laser cutters and all these cool things and sewing machines, but they didn't have a music component. So I did ask them, is it a possibility to add a couple of music stations? And they said, absolutely, and gave me a budget to be able to do that, and I'm really thankful for that tremendously. So let's talk about, you're thinking about a Makerspace, you probably don't necessarily think about music. You probably think about, doing the 3D printings of, things like this. I asked earlier, I always say it wrong. It's not, is it larynx? Well, anyways, it's this part right here. And I saw a speech pathology student print one of these things up, and they're going to paint it different colors to kind of show different parts for basically some of the areas for speech pathology as well. So these are the type of things you probably think of when you think of a Makerspace today. But in a lot of ways, when do you make music? Do we create music? Do we compose music? Do we play music? Are these all things that are things that we use in a space that we do in a room with a guitar or a piano or in front of a recording studio? I think in a lot of ways, yeah, you need a space for that, so that works out that way. And I think also thinking about a definition, so I found a couple of definitions that I liked. One, Makerspace is a physical location where people gather to share resources and knowledge, work on projects, networks, and build. Okay? We do that in music. Makerspace is an unstructured fabrication lab outfitted with a variety of tools, software, and materials, appealing to a spectrum of interests, sometimes referred to as a hackerspace and fab lab. I love hackerspace because I think that's a really cool term, because I like technology and whatnot. I'll talk a little bit about what a hacker is later on. And finally, this one here is really concise. Makerspace is a place where students can gather to create, invent, tinker, explore, and discover using a variety of tools and materials. And if you think about this, if you're composing music for a podcast or for a short film, or just in general for the concert hall, are you creating? Are you tinkering? Are you exploring? Are you discovering various things? And I think the answer is yes. So I feel that a music space in a Makerspace is very effective, and I'll talk about STEM a little bit later on and how that can gravitate to that. So once again, I kind of already talked about some of the goals for this, is to understand a little bit about Makerspaces in education, some of the innovations and creativity that you can get from working in Makerspaces or having your students working there. Let's move from STEM to STEAM, add the arts into the STEM programs, and talk about making a Makerspace or perhaps adding a music space to a Makerspace that you currently have. And of course, I love using old technology, and I'll talk about using some of the old technology to help your creativity as well, and discover how to use outdated MIDI equipment and software and to make podcasts and music. And in a lot of ways, the power of this older technology can revolutionize how music is created. And I remember seeing this meme on one of the social networks out there, and this is a Radio Shack ad. I believe it's from like 91 or 92, and everything in that ad we can do on a cell phone. So I thought, that's really amazing to see how fast technology has gone by. That that little box that we carry around all the time really has a big effect on what we need anymore. So I dragged all my old technology and put it to a picture. And actually, William Shatner answered it, which I'm a big Star Trek fan, so that was like a big deal to me. So I got a keyboard in there, got a speaking spell, and a Merlin on there, and a little TV, a calculator, and iPod and cameras on there, video cameras, and all that stuff that we just use in our own phones all the time. When I first started making YouTube videos, when they first came out, actually how I discovered about YouTube is actually in my hotel room at a TMEA. That was the first time I heard about it. And I signed up, I think I signed up actually here in San Antonio for my first account. If I would have known that, I would have used a different email address. I just thought, I didn't think it was going to go anywhere. And if you all remember, Google Video, it would take me sometimes 2 weeks or a week for it to actually come online. And YouTube went up in one day. I thought, this is amazing. This is majorly, this is great. So let's talk a little bit about makerspaces in education and some reasons why you may want to foster that in your schools and institutions of higher education as well. One is makerspaces are gaining a lot of popularity in education. I went back to look, and the term makerspace really about 2005 area. So it's been around for a bit, but it's not super old. But libraries have been offering opportunities to create things for a long period of time without that term of makerspace there. There's a lot of benefits to students. I think in a lot of ways you can expand creativity in and outside the classroom. If you have gifted and talented students, or you have students that are at risk, I think there's some really good possibilities with that as well. And I think any student can benefit, and any class can benefit from thinking outside the box. Encouraging innovation and creativity, I really feel in a lot of ways being hands-on can help foster this experimentation. And I'll talk more about some of these mouthpieces I made in a minute, and talk about some of my own personal creativity with that as well. Students can develop new ideas and encourage this personalized learning. I think a lot of times education is so by the book, and sometimes you want to explore things that you care about yourself, that you want to learn about. And I think makerspaces are a great avenue for that. Encourage group and team learning strategies as well. Working in groups and teamwork is so important in our careers as well. Some real world applications. I'm not really a 3D designer at all, but this particular robot here, I just built from shapes, and I was able to print it out, and I get this where I can show it to you, and I can hand it to you as an idea, and I can keep on learning from that. So this is a real idea of being able to manufacture things as well, and give students a chance for these deep understandings and concepts, and learn how to create these solutions for real world problems as well. And you can see these are some of the different examples of the robots that I printed out. They have bracing on it, and there's in Tinkercad, I was designing it there. And so one of my friends designed that robot for me, and he's a little better at Tinkercad than I am, so wanted to show the difference there. But the idea of failure, I think a lot of times in education that we don't recognize the importance and the power of being able to fail. I know when I play blues, when I play bebop, the failures are more important than my successes a lot of times. And I think in higher education in general, this education in general, is that where else in the world if you get a 50, that's bad. If you know 50% more how to fix a car, that's great. 25% more, but you get a 50, fail, F, right? You got to get that 60 to at least get a D in the class. And that always bothered me in some aspects of things. If you got 40% better or something, that's really, if I could be 50% better guitar player, I would take it. I would love that. That would be amazing. But these trials and errors and so forth, I think are really important because in a lot of ways, students don't give up. I'll be honest, I think this is my first print. The head's a little bit off. So I learned that by actually printing that out. And I didn't like that there wasn't any elbows or knees, so I added those later on after I looked at it. And I wouldn't call this necessarily a failure, but it's a learning opportunity as well. And I really wish education would work more on being able to develop things. So here's some mouthpieces that I worked on. On Thingiverse is a place where you can download 3D files. And even though I'm not necessarily really just talking only about 3D printers for this, this is a mouthpiece that I downloaded that someone made. I'm not really a trumpet player, but and I put on some of the trumpets down in the exhibit hall, and it does work. And so I really shallowed it out, as you can kind of see there. And this is the one I printed out. It's kind of more like a flugelhorn type sound to it. But imagine if I put like a tuba cup on a trumpet shank. How different sounds. Now, I don't know if it's going to be good music, but it's good experimentation. And I think it's something that's really fascinating when we talk about, well, maybe there's a reason why that's the design, because it actually sounds good and it actually works. And a lot of that's critical thinking and problem solving and asking questions. And then I think in education, asking questions is a very powerful part of education. Being able to think and analytically and solve complex problems are so important with that as well. And I think also, we're in the 21st century, which is weird for me to say. I can't believe we're, 24 years into the I'm still waiting for my, my robot, my flying car from the year 2000, and hasn't happened yet. But I can print out robots now, so that's I guess a good step there. But in a lot of ways, you think what's going to happen in the future. Right now, us, but our students for sure, probably are going to have jobs that don't even exist right now. We got artificial technology out there. We got all this computer processing power. We got all these things going on. There's jobs that they will have that don't exist today. And that's the same thing that happened in the past. And I think of AI as a tool. There's some problems with it. But in a lot of ways, if you don't understand how AI works, it's, I think, equivalent to back when search engines and the internet first came out. If you didn't understand how to use a search engine, you were behind. And I think in a lot of aspects, you need to understand how these large language models work as well. And our students will, and jobs will come out of those. Jobs will go away. I mean, that's just, frankly, I think by higher education, what we can do more effectively and efficiently with technology. And same thing can transfer to public education as well. But it gives I think all of us here, regardless of what happens to me, I can think, I can critically analyze, so I can adapt to whatever comes around, and we want our students to be able to do the same thing. And I love technology. So one of the last parts is on the 3D printing side, just because I do want to mention it, that I'm not a designer, I'm not some great artist, but I went on Tinkercad, watched a couple of YouTube videos, grabbed a couple of shapes, and were able to put together robots or use negative space to shallow out a mouthpiece. These are all things that you can do as well. This came straight from Thingiverse. That's the other page that I have on there. Sorry, Thingiverse. Anyways, and you can type in mouthpiece or larynx or robot, whatever little pipe devices you have, guitar picks and things like that. And I'm not worried about that aspect of it. That you're trying to print something out that's actually a musical thing. But what I really care about is students getting a hold of this technology and thinking, oh, what can I do with a guitar pick? Oh, what can I do with a mouthpiece? What kind of kazoo can I make? What kind of recorder can I make? Make it really short, make it really long. Does it change the sound? Why does it do that? That's all these critical thinking aspects in education that are amazing. So, and there's a little close up there, like you see the shapes you can use there to make, and there's other shapes as well that you can make, and it's not too difficult to do. And they have other ones as well, but I love this one because it's free. You can just go on there, sign up as an educator, and start exploring around with it. Get the file, go to a Makerspace and print it up. Guess what? I think this is like 18 grams, and so it's not too expensive. You can go on Amazon and buy a roll of PLA for like $12, $15, and you could print up a bunch, 40, maybe 100 mouthpieces, maybe 150 mouthpieces with that. So it's pretty amazing what you're able to do with this technology as well. So one last part, because I want to advocate for this, and if you already have makerspaces in your schools, is the idea of going from STEM STEM to STEAM, add the arts into it. And research has shown that students that have integrated arts and STEM classrooms tend to do better in mathematics, language arts, and that just makes sense to me. You're critically thinking. We all know we're all advocates of fine arts and the power of music and theater and dance and visual arts. I mean, all those things are so important to us. We kind of take it for granted, but others, you may need to articulate that. So if you have a makerspace in your area or you know one, you might say, hey, can I add a music section? Can we do something with music in there? Can we do something with arts? The makerspace that we have, and I'll dive into more, we have a lot of theater folks go there and make props. We have a lot of folks from the art, of course, to be able to use the equipment, the wood burners and all these things, and 3D printers in there as well. And music folks can now go in there and make music as well in this section. So I think it's really great to think about that. So be a good advocate to change STEM. We all heard that all over the place, but I want to make it STEAM. I want to add the arts in there and make it great. So let's go to the next part here about repurposing out-of-date computers and equipment. Now, I'll give a caveat. If you've got a school district that has a lot of funding and you're able to buy new equipment, yeah, please use new equipment. You can, absolutely. But if you're like most of us that have to go and scrounge things and look at things, you can use older computers. You can use older media equipment. You can use anything potentially to be able that fits that area to be able to make a makerspace or production. Software, there's a lot of free software out there. And I put podcasts because that could be another sell for you as well, because that's a real big buzzword in education that, when you record audio, you can sing, but you can also talk, and you can make a book, and you can make a podcast. And that's something that maybe some of your administrators would we love podcasts. Let's have some really good audio. And if you go into some of the time sessions here on audio, you probably know more about microphones as well. Incorporating music in makerspaces using older technology, there's a lot of possibilities with that, and being able to repurpose some of this vintage technology can ignite this creativity. I'm old enough to be back in the Commodore 64 days, if any of y'all remember those computers, and had a 3 SID chip in it, and I was making music with it back in the day, and I acquired one, I don't know, 10 years ago. It took me 3 years to be able to get MIDI interfaces. I had to get one from Germany because one software works with one MIDI interface and the other software works with another one. And it was really cool to be able to make music on a Commodore 64 again. And I think in a lot of ways using this older technology has that ability in makerspaces. And so, let's talk about building some confidence of using older technology as well. So here's a couple of computers that I purchased myself as economically as possible on eBay. One there is a Surface 3. And the other one is a MacBook Air from 2011. And I think the Surface is from 2015. And recording audio, I've gone to sessions before where they talk about, you need all this powerful stuff for this. I will tell you, you do not. I was recording audio in the year 2000, and they were a lot slower computers. So, I mean, that's just honest. Audacity, as long as Audacity's been around, I've been able to make a lot of music and record a lot of things with Audacity. And I've done that on Windows 98 machines back in the day. And on G3, even G3 processors on Macs as well. So you don't need to record audio. You don't really need something super powerful. Now, if you're using a lot of plugins and compressions and those type of things, well, maybe. But if you're going to record audio, and we all know this, garbage in, garbage out. It's better to record a good audio. If you notice, I'm right here. If I get back, the audio is not quite as good. But if you record good quality audio, I saw someone making a podcast down there at Exhibit Hall, and just kind of had that ambience. And because they got the microphones pretty close to their mouth, you're just going to hear in the background, and you won't hear anything specifically. So if you understand microphone techniques, you can do a lot of those things as well. So any recent computer you have that's younger than 15 years old, you're going to be able to make music on. You can make podcasts on. And a lot of those you can make videos. All these computers here, I can make videos with them as well. So there's some of the specs of some of these other computers: 4 gigs, an i5 processor, 16 gigs. That 2012 MacBook Pro model is a special sweet spot because It's like the last Mac you can change hard drives and memory on, and the battery's pretty easy to change on it as well. So I got one, I think $50 from a pawn shop, and I hot rodded it, put extra RAM in it, and put an SSD hard drive on it, and this made it really a pretty powerful computer for making music. GarageBand works amazing on it. The Surface, I think I needed a PC one, and so that seemed like kind of interesting as well. It also kind of works as a touch pad as well, so I thought that would be interesting to play around with that. And recently I picked up, I didn't bring it today, a 2015 iPad Pro. It's like a 13-inch, and the reason why is I wanted to put PDFs of my fake books of the music that I make, or music classical guitar pieces that I write, so I can just read it off of that. And I got it, I don't know, I think I got it for like $125, something like that. The screen's a little bit off, but I don't need it perfect for me to be able to read a PDF file on it. Chromebooks, they had a really great session yesterday on Chromebooks and all the cool things that you can do on that. Of course, anything that you do on a Chromebook is going to have to be on the internet. It's going to have to be based on something that you have some type of internet connectivity on there, unless you download some Android apps. And then playing with some Chromebooks, there are some good apps that work pretty well with Chromebooks. And the reason why I bring up Chromebooks is because I know a lot of school districts have bought a lot of Chromebooks, and they go out of date at some point. And so I'll talk about being able to maybe use a distro of Linux on them as well, potentially. So on Mac, on Apple computers, GarageBand basically works on any computer. Now, I'll give you a trick if you haven't done this before. If you have a newer Mac, if you download GarageBand on it, or even like Logic, if you buy a license for Logic, if you sign up with the same account on an older Mac, it will say, hey, the current version doesn't work, but would you like the older version? And you say yes, and then you can download the older version on it. So I use GarageBand on, like I said, this is a 2011 MacBook Air, and it's light. And usually when I travel on airplanes, because I don't want to take my good M1 laptop so it doesn't get broken or whatnot, I usually take that on there because it's good enough for the internet, it's good enough for me to write on, and if I need to make music or edit videos, I can still use it for that as well. I love Logic because it looks, Logic or GarageBand, they look the same, and once you understand how to use one, you can go up and have more features for Logic. So once you learn that one, and for education, I believe does anybody know for sure? I think it's $200 for a license for Logic, and I think Final Cut Pro also, and it's forever. And unlike Pro Tools, there's a subscription model. Once you buy it, it updates for the rest of its life, basically, on there. So it's not one of these pieces of software you have to update every year and pay a subscription fee for that as well. Audacity, of course, I assume everybody knows of Audacity. I have heard of Audacity, use Audacity. It's great. If you haven't, go look on YouTube and learn how to use Audacity. It's pretty easy because it looks like a tape recorder if you're old enough to remember how to use a tape recorder. And then Ableton Live, what I like, here's a Launchpad that I bought, used off of eBay. And they all pretty much have a license to Ableton Live Lite. And I think it's eight audio sources or eight tracks that you can have on it, which is enough to do a lot of things. You can do I can make a lot of music with 8 tracks, and especially if you're having one in a Makerspace as well. So almost every keyboard I've bought and used, usually you type in the serial number, you can go get the software that came along with it, and Ableton Live Lite is usually is one of those ones there. FL Studio used to be called Fruity Loops. But I think the Serial sued them or something, so now it's FL Studio. There's a $99 version of it that works on both Mac and PC, and it really works well. It's really intuitive for a lot of students really gravitate towards it a great deal. There's a Windows, some of the same thing. Audacity is free, Ableton Live comes with it, and FL Studio as well. So you can see both the Launchpad. And I love the Launchpad. I don't know if any of you all have played with some of those or not. It is, to me, a new instrument because you can configure it to have notes in different ways or different scales. So if you're not proficient on playing piano, you can make it where it plays chords or even melodies, and they can trigger loops. It really is a new musical instrument. Just like at some point a cello was a new instrument, or a trumpet or a horn was a new instrument. This is a new electronic instrument. So I really enjoy playing around with those. And if you haven't had a chance, those are really cool to get a hold of and play around with. I won't go dive into this a whole lot, but there's something called Ubuntu, which is a Linux distribution. And you can take an older computer, and I've done this, that works very slowly with Windows. I haven't fully converted a Chromebook, but I know I've seen people have done that. But there's actually distributions of Ubuntu that's for music. They have it for photography. And so you get a specific operating system that has all the software built into it, and all this stuff is open source, it's free to use. So that might be an option that you can use or think about if you have older computers that your IT people say, hey, this is not secure. Well, if you put Ubuntu on there, it's the latest distribution of it. It's modern, it's gonna be up to date. They do security patches weekly or nightly or something like that on there, and I really think that's a really fascinating way to think about it. There's a lot of distributions for Linux out there, and if you go search for your specific computer, you can find one that's really light. I've seen some that's small that can fit onto a 2 gig SD card or a 2 gig flash drive, and then you can install it. And that's the other thing as well. You can play around with this as well by putting it onto a stick and then boot from that stick and still keep your original operating system on there. So you can try this on a computer first. Usually it needs to be some type of Intel chip. This is Apple Silicon, this particular computer here. The newer Macs since 2020 have the Apple Silicon. But any PC's machines are going to be Intel based, and you can find distributions for that. So anyways, if you want to dive into that, there's a bunch of videos on YouTube about that as well. And it is really fascinating and interesting. So of course, I already brought up some of these concerns of using older computers, the operating system not up to date, possible security issues, right? May not be able to use the internet because of security threats. But once you install the software, once you get GarageBand and get the sounds on there, you don't need to have it on the network. And you can turn off the network cards. If you got a PC, you can actually take out the Ethernet cards on it and the Wi-Fi cards in there if you needed to. So you can lock them down where they're only being used for a purpose. We no longer think of computers as just a computer. We think of it being connected to the internet. But I've used computers back in the Commodore 64 days that you had to plug in a modem to be able to talk to somebody on a BBS. So that wasn't the norm. Being connected to somebody else wasn't the norm. And of course, they can break down, and IT won't support them, and that's fine. I will tell you this: my personal, over the last using Macintoshes since 1989. Either the Mac stops working right away or it lasts forever. And what fails are hard drives. And if you can change the hard drive out, because that's mechanical. Now you go to this SSD ones. You can the solid state drives. That's not so much an issue. Now they will wear out over time, so back up your stuff. But and you can they're way faster than the slower hard drives as well. So this was a little MacBook, not a MacBook Pro, but a MacBook that's from like 2000, golly, I don't know, 20 or 2008 or something like that. I think I bought off a marketplace for $50 and was able to use iMovie on it, and I made a lot of my YouTube videos with this version of a computer using iMovie, taking a DV tape and uploading it in real time, and then editing it and compressing it and uploading it on the internet. So, and they are slower because a lot of the bloatware out there, some of the computers are slower. I will tell you though, I've used Audacity, I've used GarageBand on older computers, and I was able to make a lot of music, and to this day, I can still continue to do that as well. Some of the benefits, of course, it can be free. Someone could just give you a computer. You may have a whole bunch of computers in surplus that are recycled. And if they're recycled, some places recycle every 3 years or every 5 years. Well, if that's the case, that computer still can be up to date. As long as you can get security, and you can put the latest version of Windows on it, or a latest version of a Mac OS on it, it's still up to date and can be used. I don't have to worry about security issues as much. Software can be free on these computers, and I already gave you some list of softwares. And if you go do a Google search, you can find a lot more softwares out there as well. And also, this is something I like, it can run unsupported software. So this computer here, there's a notation program I love that doesn't work on Apple Silicon. So when I write my little guitar study that I do every month, I actually use that MacBook Air a lot of the times, or the 2012 Mac, because I'm able to use this older notation software that I've been using since 1989 and I just love. I'll keep hoping they are going to update it, but one day hopefully they'll update it. So I've mentioned the hackerspace earlier, and what is a hacker? And I'm going to make a suggestion that a lot of you are hackers. And that's someone that knows something better than someone that made it. If you have a mechanic, then go out and take an engine out or take apart a transmission and put it back in by the end of the night, I think that person knows that really well. Well, if you learn how to use music technology like myself, I can do things with GarageBand that a lot of people can't do because I just use that software so much. Same thing with Audacity, because you learn it really well and what's the limitations or what are some things that you can actually use with that. And so, in a lot of ways as educators, we're kind of hackers as well. We know how to teach. We know our discipline. We know what we're doing really well. You can look at somebody playing trumpet and say, hey, you need to try this, or on guitar or piano, try this technique here, because we know how to make that work. So the word hacker, I think, has a negative connotation, but in some ways, it's somebody that spends a lot of time learning something. A computer hacker is someone who spends a lot of time learning about an operating system and figuring out these little flaws, how to get into things. Now, that's for bad purposes. We can be a hacker for good purposes as well, being able to use older technology in the classrooms and makerspaces as well. This here is a Casio keyboard I got off of Marketplace for $30. Now, it's not touch sensitive, but it does work with MIDI. And so I can put beats in there, I can play piano lines in there, and there's an older version of GarageBand working on that MacBook Air from 2011. That's my favorite fire hydrant next to my office. And you can sort of see it down here. There's that MacBook 2011 down there, and I'm recording audio. I'm shooting a music video from a distance. So I'm able to use the audio from going into GarageBand and then sync it with the video part of it. And so that was a cool application of it that I really like a great deal. And if I wanted to, I guess I could, use it as a backing track, playing on the street, trying to make some money or something like that. There's a Surface, and there's one of my songs, and then that way I can just play that as well, and that's an older one. That's before I got my bigger iPad Pro, so that was actually, it worked pretty well. There I am with a Commodore 64, So older computers can do MIDI. I've been using MIDI since 1989 on the computers, recording audio. Sometime in the 2000s is when I started doing that, but they actually had recording of audio back in the 80s. I just couldn't afford it back then. Podcasting, video recording, video editing. And I always think about this. An older computer can do everything a newer computer can do, just slower. That's it. A 1-bit computer can do everything a 1,000-bit computer can do, just slower. And so just because it's older doesn't mean it can't be used for something and be recycled for something as well. So I already mentioned a lot of the software already. I didn't mention Pro Tools Intro. I think that's the name of it. Pro Tools Free. And that's another one there. Anyways, so that's what I looked like in 1999. There's is that a G3? Yeah, it's a G3 Mac. And there's Performer, if you remember that. There's a zip drive on there also, if you remember the zip drives. So it shows you how fast technology kind of goes by in a lot of ways. But you don't need new computers to make music. You need this creativity and tenacity and this inquiry going on. I look at that photo, I think, golly, I used to have darker hair at one point. I think it's a size 40 suit or 38, so yeah. Anyways, that's me 2020. Just think about that creativity, tenacity, and inquiry to be able to use these technologies as well. So all these things I've talked about, I actually, in practice, I taught Bandcamp last year, and I was using my MacBook Air a lot. I actually used it for the PowerPoints in there, and I showed them how to do various things with technology with that. as well. I continue. I have an MFA in filmmaking, so I make films. I scored a whole film in GarageBand, a little short film I did on MacBook Air to show proof of concept that I can score a whole film using an older technology. And I thought it sounded fun. Actually, next weekend I'll be at a film festival showing it, so that's kind of cool as well. So you can use it for, even though I have a newer computer, I can still use older computers to be productive in that. So let's look at some MIDI controllers that I think are always fascinating and I love. The launch pads, I love them. They're small ones and bigger ones. New, they're not super expensive, but if you go online and buy some off of eBay, you get them save 30%, maybe 50%. Some of the older ones are not as desired as the newer ones that come out. There are some new features that are really good, but it can be used to input music. It can be used for Ableton Live, and so they can work in GarageBand as well. So I think they're really useful. And once again, I think this is a brand new music instrument that as time goes on, I've seen young people doing all these cool loop things and everything. I got a picture in a minute, you can kind of see that. If you remember Rock Band, they came out with some MIDI instruments. And this little Fender, was it Mustang or whatever it is, has little frets that you press down, and you have a guitar. I used to pick these things up for 15 bucks, 25 bucks. They're a little bit more now, but you may have some of those. Someone may have these. You put a couple batteries in it, you get a MIDI interface, you plug in a MIDI cable into them, and you can plug it into the computer. And this is a little hard to see. I actually have a dongle here, and I have a dongle on this guitar. So it's actually it's sending it, I don't know, it's through Bluetooth or something, but it's sending that information, maybe it's Bluetooth. It's sending the information to that to be able to trigger MIDI. So I can walk around with that guitar like I was in the 80s and be able to make music with it. So I thought that's kind of cool to be able to use these type of these older controllers. And once again, I mentioned I picked up this Casio keyboard for $30 off of Facebook Marketplace. And some of y'all may have some of those older keyboards, or someone you know that may be able to donate it if you're trying to put a station together. This here would be a station, if you add headphones into it. This is a Makerspace right here. You can create music on this. If you add a Scarlett or some type of ability to plug a microphone into it, you got a podcast. As a matter of fact, with a laptop, you have a built-in microphone in it. Is it as good as a 58? No, but it will work. I've done podcasts with this. Right now, I'm recording on Zoom using the built-in microphone here as well. So there I am making music, and you can kind of see that there. I love the little cables there. This one has a weird one. It's like the older, it's the older pre-phone one before they got the USB-C. So it works. It works. See these little indentions on that? A lot of times when you see those ones, they're a little bit better quality, and I've tried some of the cheaper ones. They may not work. So if you ever plug one in and it doesn't work, it probably still works. You just get a better, higher quality USB cable, and it does work. Here I am making some mad beats at emo night. I got they asked me to open up one night, and there I am. You can sort of see it using a launch pad. That's a 2012 MacBook I talked about, making some mad beats, and they were enjoying it. So, and this was back when I was doing some, I said computer archaeology. There's a Commodore 64 setup that I have, and I basically was the album I recorded with this was I was mimicking recording something in the 80s, so I didn't do any editing. I did record it into Audacity, but I just literally used it as a tape recorder. And so that was a fun challenge to go through there and be able to make that as well. And also, I can't believe some of this technology come back. And there's a 1984 Van Halen cassette that I had back when I bought it in 1984 for $6.50. I remember that. And today in Spotify, if you're a student, you can get a Spotify account for $5, or Apple Music, I think, for $5. And but for some reason, there's a lot of this is a new cassette that came out that plays, and I'm really kind of fascinated why anybody. Records I can understand. They are cool. They actually have a cool sound to them. Have a better audio fidelity. Cassettes really, if you remember those, I had to rewind and fast forward, and the audio quality wasn't great. It was better than 8-track, but It wasn't great, but technology goes by really quickly in a lot of aspects as well. So if you wouldn't mind, let me show like 5 minutes of the makerspace that I'm currently in, and show you some aspects of stuff. Of course, we got 3D printers as well, and there it is outside when you walk into the library at SFA, Action Jacks. And you kind of see the music station a little bit over there as they walk in. So this is the station that I was able to build, and if save the computer there, you know, $100 for the Scarlett there, the keyboard, I don't know, like say 200 range, 150 range, another 100 for that maybe. This actually was an old Squire Stratocaster I had, so I just took it in and just left it in there. So we're not talking about a whole lot of money right off the bat there. And these are some of the things that people have created, the students in there. There's a helmet from, I think that's Boba Fett, I think, and there's Einstein over there, and like a record player thing. Anyways, and this is one of the positive parts about makerspaces, and this is why I'm so passionate about it. I don't know what students are going to make. When you give them an assignment, or you let them loose in there, say, hey, I teach history of rock and roll classes, and I have an assignment, say, go in there and make something with this. It could be a t-shirt, it could be a button, it could be a bumper sticker, it could be, I don't know what it's going to be. And to me, it's really amazing what they come up with there. This is actually this is like one of the older 3D printers that they've had for, I don't know, 8 years or something like that, and it's still working. These are the latest ones they got, they are faster. They have a plate that you take off so you can just bend it, so you don't have to scrape to get the robot off. So they're slightly faster also, and easier to put in the PLA in there. This bamboo one's a new one also, is pretty fast. There's a a laser burner, and there's some acrylic abilities to be able to make these type of figures and so forth. And we're lumberjacks, so we got axe handles over there. So you ever come to one of our football games, you'll see folks walking around with axes, and they're burning the logo onto that as well. And this one's big enough they can use a whole axe handle, so that's pretty cool. We can even recycle some of the PLA as well, so that's pretty cool. Because there are a lot of mistakes that happen. And some more pictures. You can make t-shirts, and there's buttons that you can make. There's an embroidery machine there to make little logos for shirts, and I think theater folks have used that a great deal. Sewing machines to be able to make other things. You can see the 2 stations I have there also. And there's the Cricut that can cut wood or cut vinyl, be able to make t-shirts or make wallets or make books. So there's some more of the pictures there. Got some decent fast computers to be able to use the software to be able to create 3D designs. Got a little area over there that we can give little presentations on how to use equipment. So there's a little wider shot of it as well. So if you have a space, you don't need a ton of space to be able to pull this thing off to make a makerspace. And if you're going to make a music makerspace, all you need is a table, a computer, a place where you can put a keyboard, or a launch pad, or a guitar, and a Scarlett, or some type of a microphone, and you can get started with that. We do little sessions over there. I did a session on podcasting. And here's some of the robot designs that I mentioned there. It was printed off of that there. This is what they call bracing, because it goes from the bottom up. And so you got to be able to have that. So there's some other folks' pictures there. This is how I was able to take out parts of that mouthpiece. I put a circle in there, then I made it a negative, and it just takes it out, so you can go and experiment around there. Now there's a reason why, you don't have this mouthpiece be as shallow, but I think that's a better tone. But I think for experimentation, you can learn a great deal about that. There I am taking my history of rock and roll classes that are showing up in Makerspace in there. There I am when I was younger, back in the MIDI lab, and when I learned all this cool technology back in the day. So it's really cool. And there I am, full circle in a lot of aspects. So if you ever like to see a makerspace, let me know. We'll be happy to show you around. And if you have any question on that, that's a way to get a hold of me. We have a few moments if anybody has any questions you'd like to ask, or any comments, or any of y'all have experimented with Makerspaces or have any questions.
I came in a little late. How's your Makerspace funded?
This Makerspace is funded through a classroom support. So the idea for curriculum, so it's funded that way through academic affairs. Yeah. So.
And how is it managed? Is it oversight from the librarian?
There's a librarian that's the head of it, and there's a person that's dedicated as a technology person. I give my expertise for the music part of it on there. So.
But does someone need to be in there when they go into the Makerspace to supervise?
There's student workers.
I see.
There's student workers. There's probably 6 of them that work various times, and they're versed on the 3D printers and a lot of the machinery in there. They're learning some of the things about the music thing also, so how to solve problems with that. That's a great question. Well, have I inspired some of y'all to think about possibly making a space for people to make music? And, or maybe, hopefully I inspired you maybe to go back and talk about maybe having a makerspace put into your school and whatnot. You can do this. You can start off very small. Start off with a music space, get a 3D printer, and let people experiment and see what happens. And I think you'd be pleasantly surprised at how much you'd get from that as well, and so forth. So you can start a makerspace. There's no reason why you can't do that. You can use older technology. You can use newer technology, and whatnot. So if you want to get a hold of me, I guess there's some of my websites there, and there's my personal email, there's my SFA email, and I want to thank you all for coming out. Always makes me happy to have an audience when I talk and everything. So I hope you have a great rest of the TMEA, and have a great day. And I would go act some jacks because I'm a lumberjack. So thank you all so much, y'all. So you just do it. It's like that.